The hotter the conflict, the greater the triumph.
A fierce serpent may be overcome by a swarm of ants.
Lead me, follow me, or get out of my way. Age wrinkles the body, quitting wrinkles the soul.
Battle buddies.
Battle buddies.
Woo! Thanks for coming out.
We're just jumping right into
Man, dude, that made me feel like we were at a show.
Yeah, right?
I like that.
Because we did it live.
That's blast off time,
Woohoo!
dude. How's everybody doing? Thanks for coming out. We're battle buddies from Solano County. This first song is called Previously On.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Let's just jump right. How are you doing today?
Dude, good. Prior to me coming over here, my wife came into the bedroom and she was like, the Latter-day Saints are here to talk to you. And so...
Dude, they've been out lately.
They have been out. It's like season. It's the season. It's not too hot yet.
Oh, okay.
Like, you know what I mean? And I do always offer them water. We're talking about Mormons, folks. But they don't like to be called Mormons. I don't know if you knew that. They like to be called LDS.
Right. Is Mormon a slander?
They just view it as disparaging.
Okay.
But whatever.
Every kid I knew that was Mormon called it Mormon.
Oh, cool.
But maybe that was just
we're from a different time.
Yeah.
But I went out and talked to them, and bro, I gave them the whole rundown. They were just like, you know, how are you? Like, how'd you grow up? Blah, blah, blah. I was telling them why I'm not religious anymore, how I grew up religious, how I like respect all the people that are still religious, yada, yada, yada. I gave them like my whole knowledge of the Book of Mormon, which is actually extremely knowledgeable. Yeah. I was throwing out dates. They were like, oh, okay, this dude knows this shit. And you want to know how the conversation ended? They were like, so what's the name of your podcast?
Nice. Hey.
So, yeah, I was like, I'm going to go record about Julius Caesar right now. So welcome to Battle Buddies, everybody.
Welcome.
We're here. This is the beginning of the end, as I like to say.
Yep.
This is the second to last episode.
Second to last episode.
It's very exciting. I was in the shower, completely nude today.
There we go.
Just think about that for a second.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Eyes closed. I'm there. I'm there.
Steamy. And I was just like,
though.
man, I'm going to miss this. I'm going to miss Julius Caesar.
He's fun.
It was a good time. It was a really good time.
Well, it's not over yet. Let me
take me there.
I'm going to try to put some, I'm going to set the mood for this.
Oh,
right, listen to it. Let's see if it works. So previously on Battle Buddies. All right, full disclaimer going into this. Shit is getting complicated in the story by Book 5. We're going to simplify, condense, and probably get a lot of information incorrect for the sake of presenting this story to you in the most interesting way we can. Luckily, we are not historians, so we are not bound by the rigid rules that govern their content. To recap where we're at, though, Caesar has invaded Gaul for several years now. That can't be right. It is right. Several years he's been in Gaul just fucking shit up. He has destabilized the entire area. He's fundamentally changing the course of history forever in the course of this book. In Book 4, which was the last book we read, he took a trip to London to see if he could conquer them real quick.
That was horrible.
You sound like you're from London. That's the Forgetting Sarah Marshall joke.
I get it.
All right. He couldn't. It was kind of awesome. All right, so we're in Book 5 right now.
Book 5.
And we're going to start out with Caesar building himself a navy. Anyway, Caesar began his winter by telling his men to build him a navy to defeat those pesky Britons once and for all. The men were very eager to do this because of their love for Caesar or other random propaganda nonsense Caesar definitely did not make up. Caesar began to have some trouble with hostages, plots, and all-around bad vibes. He realized it was probably coming from the Gallic state of Treveri. Treveri was experiencing a power feud between two would-be leaders, Centaurix and Indutiomarus. Nope. I practiced this. How should we be saying this guy? Indutiomarus. Indutiomarus. We're all there now. We got this. Centaurix. Let me spell this out for you guys. I'm not just making up that these names are difficult. Indutiomarus. That's crazy. Centaurix went to Caesar and said "Hey, Daddy, if you support me, I bet I could get all those Treveri to chill."
Daddy, chill.
That was a reference to the
way you said daddy.
Yeah, that was that Instagram post that everyone's always posting, the "Daddy, chill." And he's like, "What the shit is even that?"
I don't know what
You
you're
don't know what I'm
talking
talking about?
No, dude.
Oh man, it's like a viral video. It's great.
Really?
I think
Daddy,
these guys
chill.
are like hanging out in this dude's backyard or something. He's like, "What the fuck you guys doing here?" And this guy comes up. He's like, "Yo, Daddy, chill."
But is it real though?
Yeah, and the guy's like,
God.
"What the shit is that?"
You know what, listeners? Summer is coming up, and Kevin and I are going to do a reaction video where we get to watch videos on the
Yeah.
internet.
There we go.
So go ahead and show
We're
me
ready
that.
for it.
I'm so ready for it. Okay, Daddy, chill. Very
Daddy,
topical,
chill.
dude. Good job.
Daddy,
Thank you.
chill.
Indy Tuamaris was building an army instead. He wasn't following the Cingetorix. Well, at first, but after Indy Tuamaris realized that Caesar and Cingetorix together would be trouble for him, he asked Caesar to instead help him out. Caesar accepted Indy Tuamaris because, and I quote here, "in order that he might not be compelled to waste a summer among the Treveri, when everything had been prepped for the campaign in Britain, he ordered Indy Tuamaris to come to him with 200 hostages." It gets complicated as Indy Tuamaris escapes. Kind of, maybe. It's not like super clear to me how he isn't going to Britain with him, but he doesn't. Or at least he's not going to be there at the end of it. And it's overshadowed by another hostage who really, really, really doesn't want to go. He like is faking injuries. He's like, "I hurt my foot.
My appendix.
I can't go. My foot hurts." And all of them, Caesar's like, "No, you're my hostage. You still have to do what I say. You're going with me." He's like, "Oh, I can't now. I'm sick." And anyway, he tried to escape and they killed him.
Oh,
Yeah.
huh. So much for that. Now you're really sick, bud.
Now he's sick. Or better. But we see here the beginnings of a new characteristic of Caesar, fear. Caesar, in addition to 4,000 cavalry and thousands of soldiers, took hundreds of Gallic hostages with him on his campaign against Britain because, and I'm quoting Caesar here, he feared an uprising in Gaul during his absence. Let's appreciate...
So let me just take some with me.
Yes,
Okay.
Lots. Let's appreciate the literary devices we are starting to see at play here for Caesar. If this story is a mix of fact and fiction, as it likely is, then Caesar is leaving his road of trials and approaching his climax. But before he can complete his heroic journey, he needs to go into the underworld to gain a skill, a boon, or gain special knowledge that will help him in his supreme ordeal. I believe he's using fear as the enemy he must defeat to ultimately be victorious in this Gallic war. This would work well as a political narrative as well, because he would be returning to Rome as something more than a man, something more than a politician, because he no longer has that pesky fear that stops all the other men. I don't know if this theory has any weight to it, because I've not really read any literary analysis of this book at all, but it's a fun idea to play with, of this book as both historical account of what happened and this literary device for him to eventually become the emperor. This fear also makes a lot of sense for the Romans to connect with. After all, they aren't that many years away from being a legitimate empire, and there must always be a little bit of fear of rebellions from conquered people, which is a Roman pastime.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel it when I'm reading this, that all of a sudden Caesar's afraid of shit.
You know, if you were to go back and write the Julius Caesar way of revisionist history,
Yeah.
like what's something in your past that was really shitty that if you were to write it in Julius Caesar style, you would fix? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'll give you an example.
Yeah, I want an example.
So when I was younger and I knew I was going to join the military, my parents still forced me to take the SATs, and in the middle of it, I just didn't give a shit, and I asked for them to give me like a paper towel for my my hangnail that I picked, and it
Yeah.
started bleeding, and they're like, "Yeah, you can't talk during the test, and we can't get you a towel." So I bled all over my SATs. And my Julius Caesar version, I fucking killed the SATs.
Yeah, absolutely. You crushed
fucking
it.
murdered it.
I don't have any that come to mind right away. Most of my life is cringy moments.
Kevin just has a wonderful life.
I do have a wonderful...
Nothing but great choices.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but like, God bless that broken road that led me home to you.
Are you quoting the Rascal Flatts?
I fucking love that song. That song is legit.
God bless the broken Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
That is a good song, actually.
That's a great song.
Yeah. Have you ever heard Rascal Cats?
No.
Yeah, it's a bunch of guys that's dressed up like cats, and they go meow 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 meow.
That's so much work for a novelty act.
Yeah, dude, Rascal Cats.
Rascal Cats.
Check
I
them
like
out,
it.
guys.
I like it. They're just doing their thing.
Is
Do
this
you think
what?
were they already like dressing up as cats and practicing? Like, we need a fucking band that this works with, or were they just really big Rascal Flatts fans? And then they're like, what can we do to put our spin on this as a cover band?
Yes.
Yeah.
me and Alan just made it up in high school. It's not a real
Oh.
thing.
I could totally see this being a thing on Instagram.
Maybe we start it.
We start the
Rascal
Cats.
Cats.
Okay, because you can't say like that's outlandish, because I follow a drummer on Instagram, and all he does is he pretends to drum along with songs that are silly versions of songs. Like, it's Goofy singing Bring Me to Life, and he tries to drum along to it before he starts laughing too much. It was really good content.
Okay. Yeah.
Most of the time, he doesn't even drum anymore because he just laughs. I'm
That's
like,
funny.
This is great content for him.
That's interesting. I just recently, my algorithm spewed at me a drummer who practices knocking on doors to different. It's
That's
pretty
so
good.
cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
I like that.
Yeah, one day, people, I'm telling you, this summer, you guys, you're gonna get a peek into our algorithm. It's gonna be fun.
I'm ready for it.
Me too.
Can you sing this subheading?
I'm sailing away.
That was good. We didn't practice that, guys. I just have I'm sailing away.
Sticks, right?
Yeah. That's that South Park joke. You can't hear that song and then not finish the entire song in your head. It's like, that was pretty good. Okay, so we're sailing away here. Caesar set out for Britain with a couple thousand cavalry and 5 legions in 800 boats. Even in modern day standards, the image of that many people leaving port in that many boats must have been an almost biblically awesome sight to behold.
Dude, I'm wondering how at all accurate that is.
It's crazy. Even if it's
There would
half
be
of that.
archaeological evidence.
Yeah,
There would have to be.
there'd have to be. 800 boats is fucking bananas to cross the English Channel.
Yeah, dude, that's wild.
So here's from Caesar. He left Labienus on the continent with 3 legions and 2,000 horsemen to guard the ports, to look out for the grain supply, to learn what was going on in Gaul, and to form such plans as conditions at the time might require. So he left a dude, Labienus. We've met Labienus a couple times. He's a pretty good guy.
Ooh, I see a phalanx type thing going on here.
Yeah, wait till you get to that. So let's learn about this British campaign. The start of Caesar's conquest of Britain was rough. I mean, the landing went better because he changed his boats around, but it was still rough. We get a glimpse into some more of the British fighting. And this is kind of what I wanted to focus on. It's just some of the tactics, because we've already gone over a British campaign. We know more or less how they work.
Yes, sir.
But we get some new parts. So, driven back by our cavalry, they hid in the woods. There they had secured a place remarkably well fortified by nature and art, which, as it seemed, they had prepared before for a civil war. For all the entrances were obstructed by a great number of trees that had been felled. So kind of just like this forest camp that they created in the dense forest. And I like that Caesar can't imagine an entire like group of people just hating him so much that they fell all these trees. Like, it had to have been a civil war. Like, why else would they have had this?
Let's just call it a civil war. Yeah. That's funny.
So the British attempted a sortie or sally out of these fortifications, and the Romans responded by forming a testudo. A testudo is that classic looking formation where all you see of the soldiers next to each other is their shields. The ones in the middle put their shields above them to protect them from above. So you see like shields in the front, shields on the side, and shields above. Basically, it is a squad that behaves like a turtle. The most interesting thing, though, is that after they were successful with their testudo maneuver, Caesar forbade his men to pursue the fleeing enemy too far. This is a big deal from my reading of Caesar. First, it shows he has learned from earlier conflicts that his men are not equal to Gauls in the woods. Second, Caesar has to admit a measure of fear or respect to these Gallic soldiers as he descends deeper into the beating heart of Gaul. And third, his victories aren't blowouts like the first couple years because he can't eliminate the enemy in one battle anymore. Remember those first couple of years, he kept wiping out the whole tribes because he would just chase them down and kill them all. And now he can't do that anymore.
Sucker.
Yeah.
Sucks to suck.
Oh, it's going to suck for Caesar this episode. This is probably the worst it ever gets for Caesar.
Yay. Enjoy it now, folks.
Yeah.
Well, he does die, doesn't he?
I mean, eventually.
He dies. Spoiler alert.
This happens, 2,000 years ago.
Huh, not too long. Like it was yesterday.
Not only that, but a big storm came through and fucked up all the new boats. He lost like 40 of them immediately and then had to spend 10 days building a fortification around his newly beached boats. They also get attacked by cavalry and charioteers. That sounds pretty brutal. One interesting technique we see from Caesar here comes from his proximity to his troops, from his language. During one of the conflicts, it says, "Our men pursued too eagerly and lost some of their own men." And I'm starting to see this as a pattern more and more, the like our men versus their own men. So it's pretty common throughout the book. He usually says our men, like it's a collective we, right? We are Romans. These are our soldiers. We are all part of these soldiers.
The royal we.
Yes, exactly. In that way, but he changes it to their own men, or he names the lieutenant when somebody fucks up now. And I think he's doing that whenever something bad happens in a way to create like a small amount of space between him and the person that's fucking up, so that the Romans don't think like, oh, we have fucked up. Caesar's fucked up. He's like, no, they fucked up. But every time they do something right, it's our soldiers. Like, we did it.
It's kind of like when you're married and you have a kid.
Right.
And when the kid fucks up, the wife is always like, look at what your son is doing.
Your son.
Yeah.
I do that all the time. Like, your oldest
Yes,
is crazy right now.
Yes, of course.
Yes, it's exactly like that. It's a very powerful technique. And it's a dick thing to do, though, I imagine, as a general of an army. Like, they are your dudes. Like, I mean, we have issues with our military, clearly, but our Navy is top down in terms of punishment, which is, like, it is a collective we. They never get to say, no, they fucked up. Like, when a plane crashes or helicopters crash into each other, that keeps happening. The higher-ups are the ones that are getting in hella trouble for that.
Yeah. The biggest thing when you would have safety briefs before you go on Liberty call, like on the weekends, and this is every fucking weekend, they always try to remind you, like, hey, if you go out in town and you fuck up and you end up on the news, they're not going to hear like Spencer Schultz is on the news. They're going to hear like a Marine was on the news.
Right.
So like you fuck up, we all fuck up.
How antsy are you guys in those meetings? Like, are you guys like clawing at the walls? Because my 6th period 8th graders are clawing at the walls to get out.
I bet,
I imagine Marines that have had to be good all week are
Hey, man.
like struggling.
I've asked my brother before, who was in the Navy. We all know him from our
Yes.
previous episode.
Great episode.
Where I was talking to an Air Force person and I was like, man, remember like safety briefs? And they're like, what the fuck is a safety brief? And so I asked my brother, I was like, do you know what safety briefs are? And he's like, do I know what safety briefs are? Get the fuck out of here, dude. Yes, I know what a safety brief is. So for those of you who don't know, you don't know. You just don't know.
You don't know, you don't know.
No, man. Yeah. It's like being an 8th grader in middle school.
Dude. I feel for him.
Well, you guys are almost done, right?
We're so close to being done.
5 days?
I don't even know. I'm trying not to count.
Oh, good for you,
I just accept the day
dude.
as it is.
What a stand-up guy. Because every human being I
That's
come in
me.
contact with at school, I don't even say, I'm like, hey, happened like 4 days. I'm like, oh, all right. Yeah, good to know. No, who's counting?
Yeah. All right. Where were we at?
I don't know. Oh, you were talking about him being Caesar being a piece of shit with his wordsmithing.
Yeah, but it tracks for a politician.
It
So,
does.
In this sense, it's very confusing, I think, for us, the modern, especially like American listener, because we separate the military and the politics, but those were combined things. So that was, he was a political general. And I think that there are nuances there that,
That's an important
accept.
distinction to make.
yeah, his goals are grand, whereas a general's goals are to do a good job.
Yeah.
Right? Even if a general's goal is to become like what the Joint Chief of Staffs or whatever, like
Right.
they still can't become the president like that. And that's on purpose. Like that's good.
Mm-hmm.
They shouldn't. I don't know if they can't, but they won't.
Checks and balances,
Yeah.
if you will.
Anyway, the ambush ended with a tribune, Quintus Liberius Durus, dying, which is a big deal. Like, he was a tribune, which meant like he was a friend of, like, he was of notoriety in Rome. Like, people knew him. Caesar can't sweep this one under the rug and be like, we didn't not take some hits. Like,
So that's what a tribune means?
yeah, it means like someone noteworthy, I think. You can look up the definition.
Tribune.
And while he's doing that, shit started popping off back on the continent. Or at least Caesar was afraid stuff was going to be popping off. So he ended his Britain campaign early. He doesn't fully eradicate Britain. He gives them some weird like tax, like a yearly tax they have to pay.
Oh, interesting. So a tribune, it's a specific word to ancient Rome. It's an official in ancient Rome chosen by the plebeians to protect their interests.
Yeah.
That's tight.
Yeah. He's like an
That's dope.
advocate. Like, he's known.
It sounds like an elected official,
Yeah.
but like one that actually matters.
Yes. And him dying was a big deal.
Yeah, no shit.
And Caesar had to write it down. You know, he fucking was pissed writing that down. Like, and this shithead. Like,
Yeah.
because the fight was pretty hard, and I bet Caesar would have liked to have written more of like, they put up a good fight, but we got him and we didn't lose a soldier, or at least no one you know by name.
This is the dude. What's his name? The tribune. You said his name. Fucking Loquacious. Oh, Quintus.
Yeah, Quintus.
Yeah. Do we know how he died?
I don't remember how. I don't think it says how this guy specifically died, but we're gonna get into some other deaths of
Okay.
officers later. It's gnarly,
Just curious.
dude. Oh, you're gonna love it. You're gonna love a couple parts of
Let's
this.
get into it.
Okay. Now we go into the rise of Ambiorix. Part of Caesar's fear about a Gallic uprising came from issues with grain.
Ah, goddamn grain.
Yeah, we're
It's
seeing
always
this in
about
modern
grain.
times. This is literally what's going on with Russia and Ukraine and most of Africa.
I seen that. Yeah.
Caesar said it was from a drought and definitely not from multiple years of Romans burning farms across all of Gaul, which he will do again in this book. He will burn farms. His allies will know he's coming by the smoking farms in the distance. They're like, oh, that must be Caesar, because who else could light the whole farm on fire?
Sounds like a really beautiful painting, though.
Yeah, it would be nice. Just screaming children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No more grain for the summer.
Some got sent out. All right, sorry, back up here. He sent out Roman groups all over Gaul to get prepped for the winter of not enough grain. It's a big deal. Like, he's kind of freaking out about it. Some got sent out to the people we met the last episode, the Eburons. Let's pause for a minute to go over these folk. The Eburons tribe eventually became what is now Belgium.
Oh.
But at this time, they are ruled by Ambiorix and Catevulcus. But we're mainly going to talk about Ambiorix because Ambiorix is the leader you get to play when you wield the Gaul in Civilization 6.
Really?
So I obviously like him the best. Ambiorix, inspired by Indiotomarus, led an attack. Well, a little bit about Ambiorix. That's not his real name. That name means like king, like the full kings. What we're seeing here, Ambiorix and Indiotomarus, like what they are really doing is they're starting to get more tribes and states together than have ever been come together before in Gaul. Like, usually Gaul can kind of get a state together if like the Germans, let's say, were going to raid them. They might be able to get a few of the state tribes together, but not really. But all of a sudden we're seeing them like really wielding power, so they get these weird names.
And this specifically is they're trying to combine forces to fight Rome specifically?
Turns out they're not stoked about it, and they know grain being an issue is a catalyst for all this shit. Indiotomarus led an attack. About a fortnight after the Roman forces had come into winter's quarter, a sudden outbreak and revolt was started by Ambiorix and Catevulcus. After a tough battle that favored the Romans after their Spanish cavalry arrived. We haven't really talked about the Spanish cavalry, but to the west, right, would be what is Spain, and so they do have some Spanish cavalry, some Spanish horsemen. But anyway, after the Spanish cavalry arrived, Ambiorix held a conference with the Romans where he said the conditions of his authority were such that the people had as much power over him as he had over the people. Basically, he was saying that he had no choice to revolt because the people would have killed him for not doing it. which is kind of a Gallic thing to say. Like, they're just crazy. You see them back there? Like, they're wild. I had to. People have interesting opinions on Ambiorix. I fucking love them.
Hey, I got a question.
Yeah.
Can we? Can we claim Gaul? Does anybody do that?
The Belgians love Ambiorix.
Like to this day,
They have statues of him still. Like, he's a national hero.
like that's what I want. So like from going forward, when people are like, "Hey man, like what's your ethnicity?" I'm like, I'm from the Gaul.
Yeah,
Can I do that?
I think so.
Yeah?
Who cares?
Yeah, you're right. Who gives a shit?
Yeah. Some people call themselves Celts, right?
Totally.
Yeah. That's a
It's
Celts
the same fucking thing.
Yeah.
Well, careful.
Careful. But
okay.
hold up. All right. Ambiorix said that there were German soldiers coming in just a couple days, but he could grant safe passage for the Romans to go through their state. Okay, so he's not talking to Caesar. He's talking to one of these guys that Caesar has put in charge of this area, of the Eburon area. And he's saying, I'm sorry we attacked you. Like, I had to. My soldiers are crazy. Also, there's a bunch of Germans coming for you. You guys should run through my state free of charge to get away from them.
Okay.
Okay. To me, when I read that, I'm like, so don't do that. You're the Romans, but
Free of charge.
yeah,
Okay. Let's see how this works out for them.
it's just great. It's going to work out great. The Romans held council and said it was hardly credible that the obscure and insignificant state of the Eburons of its own accord had dared to make war upon the Roman people. So they're just the Eburons mean nothing. They are so small. They mean, who cares? They are too insignificant to possibly pose a threat. Basically, the council was sure that the Gallic people, known for starting shit all of the time, weren't about to start shit. The council was split between everyone wanting to stay and wait out the winter and one guy, Sabinus, being scared of enemies overwhelming them. Personally, I do sympathize with Sabinus because he strikes me as someone who suddenly became keenly aware of how unwanted he is in a foreign land. Remember, the enemy of Book 5 is fear.
The only thing to fear is fear itself.
Yeah. So, Sabinus wins. He wins this argument.
Mm-hmm.
It's between him and this guy, Coda. And eventually, like, all the other officers are like, hey, what we can't have more than anything is indecision and split decisions. Like, you guys are both kind of in charge. One of you has to yield so that we can be united. Like, it doesn't matter who's right. And so Coda's like, I'll be the bigger man, even though I know you're fucking up.
Dang.
Yeah.
So
So
take a lesson from that.
yeah, right.
Yeah,
It was a big move.
for sure.
So the Romans marched at dawn in columns, which must have been fucking massive. Because it's thousands of soldiers, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's just one legion, it's still 3,000 to 5,000 soldiers,
Totally.
something like that. That's huge. And I forget their actual numbers, but I know that Caesar doubles them later. So
It's a lot.
It's a lot. The rear of the column was ambushed by Ambiorix's men. Turns out he was lying and just wanted them to walk through his territory.
Gee.
Who would have thought?
Thank you for letting us use your passage. Oh, we're getting ambushed.
Yeah.
Jesus.
So dumb. I love it. So Sabinus freaked out and is useless, but his opposition Coda remained calm because Coda was like, I don't think this is a good idea, and I'm only going along because it's the right thing to do. He told the men to abandon everything to form themselves into just a giant ass square. So they had to leave all their equipment, all their
everybody?
personal belongings. Yeah, like all
So
these
this
soldiers.
is like a ridiculously massive square.
I guess so.
Okay. Like the Battle of Waterloo.
Yeah. Romans aren't used to giving up their shit, so they took it pretty hard. Like they mentally, they are like distraught.
Oh yeah. So like they literally have to drop weapons and all that shit to do this. You said.
Yes, they have to drop all
Yeah.
their personal belongings, all their loot that they've been stealing as they've been pillaging, and which is how kind of they get paid, right? You get paid in pillaging,
Yeah.
and they're just watching the Gauls eyeing it and getting stoked, and the Gauls are loving that they're having such a bad day.
Yeah. So listeners, if you haven't listened to our Thermopylae series, when we talk about gear back in that time,
Yes.
sometimes it was like passed down from your like great grandfather.
Yep.
And it was like huge property. It's like if someone fucked with your house.
Yep.
Like it's a really, really big deal for them to just drop all their weapons and go form in this
And their
square.
food.
And food, yeah, that's crazy. Wow. Okay.
So they took it pretty hard. But Coda is like prepped for this. Like he'd been thinking about what he wanted to do. So they got off this surprise sally and they charged against some of the Gauls that got too close. But then they ended up getting hit hard by missiles when they tried advancing later on. So Ambiorix was proving himself as a formidable opponent. Caesar said of him, "The enemy, on the other hand, maintained their presence of mind." Which is basically like Ambiorix is shouting good commands to his troops. So we're finally getting like good Gallic leadership. He's saying like, don't pursue, just shoot them with missiles and like, let's just scare them and not let them attack us. And it's working really well. And his soldiers are listening to him, which is all things that historically have not been happening in these types of encounters. This was the real deal because Roman officers were not safe from the fight. Titus Balvinitus, a chief centurion, so he was fucking legit. He had both of his thighs pierced by a javelin.
Ow.
It went through both of his thighs.
Ow.
God.
Oh, you're saying one javelin.
One javelin.
Oh, gee whiz. He's like on a skewer.
Yes.
Oh, God, that sounds horrible, bro.
Quintus Lucanius, an officer of the same rank, was killed while fighting most bravely when he came to the rescue of his son, who had been surrounded. The lieutenant Lucius Coda, while encouraging all the cohorts and sentries, was struck full in the face by a slingshot. And I know we're thinking Dennis the Menace slingshots, but it was more like they launched a rock at him at 20 miles an hour.
Like a catapult.
Yeah. So he didn't die, but he's hurting.
Just imagining that. In like Austin Powers when the cupcake smacks him in the forehead, he's like, "Who throws a cupcake, honestly?"
So it doesn't. The Romans are gonna make some more boo-boos. They make some more boo-boos here.
Whoopsie daisies.
They are whoopsie daisies. Sabinus tries to parlay with Ambiorix. Coda said not to because he just fucking tricked you, you big dumb bitch. But Sabinus figured it was okay. So he brought a bunch of the centurions who were like their best fighters to Ambiorix. They laid down their weapons, and then they were all killed. Yeah, because why would you do that?
Yeah.
They're in the middle of a battle.
Why did they do that?
I don't know.
Oh, it just says that.
Sabinus was just like, "I want to parlay with you, Ambiorix." And Ambiorix was like, "Sure, why don't you just walk over here with a bunch of your centurions and just drop all your spears?" And he's like, "Okay, we're going to do it." And Coda's like, "Don't do that. Just don't do that specifically. That's obviously a bad move."
Okay.
And so he did it.
This was like this was what was going on with someone was like, "Drop your weapons and we'll have an amicable discussion about this."
Yeah, but he didn't even
drop their weapons. But that's probably what it was.
Yeah, but even in Caesar retconning this, it didn't sound like he was like, yeah, you're safe, I promise. It was more just like, yeah, do this if you're dumb, I guess. Like, I mean, maybe he said it. And Ambiorix does kind of have like this, from the Roman perspective, he's like this consummate liar. Like he's this constant guy who can't help but lie. But I bet from the Belgian perspective, he's like, he's protecting his fucking homeland from invaders. You do what you have to do.
I just don't know of any scenario where people would have dropped their weapons for no reason.
Yeah, without like, how can I know that we're going to be safe?
Right.
The answer is you can't. And that guy's he doesn't have a great track record.
Right.
So
weird.
Yep.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah. Ambiorix loved this though, because then the Gauls stormed the remaining Romans who just lost all their leadership. Coda and most of the army were killed, which I feel bad. Coda was making good choices, but this is war. One dude, Lucius Petrosides, said, it was said of him, although hard pressed by a great number of the enemy, threw the eagle within the rampart and was himself killed. So he was the eagle bearer and he was about to die. And he's like, "Oh no, I have the eagle still." And so he went to the camp, the rampart, and just chucked the eagle as hard as he could and got it in right as he died. And like Caesar's like, "I fucking love that dude."
That's hilarious. Eagle.
Can you imagine like you're one of the guys that made it to the camp and you're like, "Is that the fucking eagle?" It's just like, yeah.
Oh man, for listeners who have no idea what we're talking about, there's a clip of the eagle on our Instagram and our YouTube of what we're talking about, but the eagle is hilarious.
So good.
We want to get our own.
We want to get
for the studio.
A few soldiers were able to make it to camp, but in the night, despairing of safety, they killed one another to a man. The rest of the survivors made it to Lieutenant Titus Labienus's camp. So we make it back to Titus Labienus. But pretty intense that all those, like, because there was a group that did survive the initial onslaught, and they were like hiding out, and they're like, it's not looking good. So they just took turns slitting each other's throats.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, pretty gnarly.
It's like that.
And I went back and forth. I was like, I felt really bad for them. I feel bad for every soldier because every enlisted soldier, like, they're not making the choices. They're just doing what they think they have to do. But they're the invading force, and they shouldn't be there, right? I don't know. I'm not gonna try to put a judgment on this. It happened 2,000 years ago.
That's fair. Yeah, it's out of your hands, bro.
It was out of my knowledge. There's too much context. So let's go on to Cicero's camp. Ambiorix was pumped. You know, he was just running around giving high fives to all the guys. They probably did that tunnel thing with your arms that you do at the end of childhood soccer games. Just, woohoo, we did it. Because he's the first one to actually beat him.
I forgot about those.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
And he went to the Nervi. He went to a few people, but we know the Nervi, so I put them in there. And they agreed to help fight against the Romans. Everyone in Gaul is getting pumped right now, like at the exact same time, because this is the first time there's been a legitimate victory for the Gaul. Not just we didn't all die or we traded. It was we just took them out and we outmaneuvered them. So that was cool for them.
The Nervi joined forces.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cicero was the next target, and a siege was established against him. They asked for a parley with the Nervi, and they told Cicero that all Gaul was in arms. The Germans had crossed the Rhine, and the winter quarters of Caesar and of the others were being attacked. Now, that wasn't all probably true. Like, I don't think Germans were crossing the Rhine because later on, and we won't get into it, but for those that like more of the history, there is a bunch of stuff about them trying to get Germans over to join the Gauls, and like they just won't really do it. And they eventually get some. So I don't think they're doing it on their own right now. But they're just trying to scare the shit out of Cicero. They're just like, we're fucking shit up right now. But it was true that Cicero was in a bad spot because he couldn't get messengers out to Caesar to let him know shit was hitting the fan. Caesar didn't even know about Sabinus yet at this time. When Cicero is getting sieged, Caesar still has no fucking clue that he's lost the whole group.
God, he didn't have reception.
For
the fucking text message.
For the messengers, the Gaul would torture and kill them in front of the Roman camps. So every time they would try to send a messenger out, they would catch him, put him right in the center of the road, and torture and kill him. Like, send your next one out when you're ready. Which is, I imagine, very effective to not get volunteers to go
a
out.
messenger shows up, he sees a messenger dead in the road, he's like, not today.
Yeah, no, I don't want to do that.
Turn around. I am going into exile now.
Yeah. During the siege, the Nervi built a 10-foot rampart and trench 15 foot wide. They said they learned it from watching you. Shout out to Dare Against Drugs or whatever that one was. Right? Wasn't that a drug one?
I learned it by watching you.
It's like the kid smoking weed and his dad's like, what are you doing? He's like, I learned it from watching you.
Oh, no. That was the propaganda that they had?
Yeah.
Like in our... No, I don't remember that.
That was a commercial. It was like a big deal commercial.
During our upbringing? Oh, no. No, that sounds horrible.
It was really
learned
bad.
It from you.
I learned it from watching you.
I learned it by watching you.
Gosh. All right.
But anyway, I thought it was cool. Like, they're capturing... Because the Gauls, the Nervi, are capturing hostages.
So... A rampart's just a fucking wall, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
It's like a tower, rampart, wall thing.
Yeah, it's just a fancy way of saying wall, I'm pretty sure.
But the thing is that the Gauls aren't dumb. They're not barbarians like we've been taught that they are. They are capturing hostages and being like, that wall thing that you guys keep doing and taking us out with, how does that work? And then the hostages are like, well, I'm interested in not dying, so I'll tell you. And then they tell them, and then now they're building them and using them. That's a quick turnaround.
It's crazy.
That's happening in real time. They're really capturing people, learning the tech, and now implementing the tech. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. It's also crazy that during a siege, the Nervi builds a 10-foot tall ramp. Like, what?
Yeah.
How the fuck does that make any... How are you fighting and building a wall?
Yeah. Because they're learning from the Romans. Because they see the Romans do that. That's how the Romans operate, right? The Romans are attacking while the other Romans are building
this
something.
Is a thing that's already happened before. The whole wall thing is...
Yes.
Okay.
And it got really windy. Then the Nervi started sending red-hot balls of clay by sling into the camp to light it on fire.
Truly?
Yes.
Okay.
And it works because most of the
Great balls of fire.
I know, right? Like, it's great. Because most of the houses inside these camps that Cicero, it's not Cicero. Is it Cicero? Who's camper? Yeah, we're in Cicero's camp. Cicero's camp is really just a bunch of Gallic houses that Cicero claimed as his own and built this little wall around. So those houses have straw roofs. And so those you can light on fire by throwing.
Burn.
Yeah. Then the Gallic tower, the rampart, eventually makes contact with the camp. And the Romans back up. They yelled at them to come on and enter if you dare. And the Gauls didn't. They kind of backed off at the end.
Oh,
This is a retcon.
That's what did it for him?
I don't know. The way that Caesar sells it, he's like, they backed up 3 paces to let them know that they were ready for them and shouted and hurled insults at them to come in, and they never did.
God, they just were bitch asses?
Yeah,
That's all he's saying?
I don't know. I don't know how much I believe it.
And then they were bitch asses.
Yeah, I don't know. The Gauls they get all that work to get there. I think I could see it though being like, the place is already on fire. I think we're good. But one issue that the Gauls did have was that they were so eager because they just learned that the Romans can be defeated. One issue they're running into is that their front lines were getting like smushed by their back lines and they couldn't retreat. So they would get wounded. And normally when you get wounded on these lines, then you go to the back so that you could recover. But they weren't able to like rotate.
Yeah.
And so that was an issue for them. So I could see like some tired ass Gauls being like, I'm sick of this shit. Like I need to take a break. My leg is torn off.
Too much circle pit.
Yeah, too much of the mosh pit. We also get a very interesting story about 2 centurions, Titus Pullo and Lucius Vorenus. They were in competition all the time to be the best. And I don't know if this is just propaganda, but it's a fun story. Of these, Pullo, when fighting was the very fiercest before the fortification, shouted, "Why do you hesitate, Vorenus? What better opportunity of proving your valor are you waiting for? This day shall decide our quarrels." Having said this, he advanced outside the fortifications and rushed upon the part of the enemy which appeared the thickest. Vorenus did not remain within the rampart, fearing the adverse opinion of his fellow soldiers. He followed close after. Eventually, Pullo gets hit by a javelin, and while he was thus hampered, he was surrounded by the enemy. His rival, Vorenus, ran to his rescue and helped him in his difficulty. They got through the thick of the fighting and returned unharmed to camp, covered with the greatest glory. Sounds like some propaganda shit.
Oh.
But it was kind of cool. Like, I do like the story. It's just like a minor story of 2 kind of officers that are always in competition to be like the squad leader or like the chief. So maybe they're enlisted guys fighting for like who gets to be like the sergeant or something.
Yeah.
And I could kind of see that,
That's
right?
dope,
And then
yeah.
one jumps in, he's like, "Are you gonna come, bitch? Or are you too much of a bitch today?" And then the other one comes in, and one gets hurt. It's like, "Oh shit, I'll save you though." Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of cool.
It is kind of cool.
Eventually, a slave is able to slip past the Gaul to get a message to Caesar. So a slave was able to like act like a slave, and all the Gauls are like, "Well, he's just a slave," and so he walked by. So the Romans were apparently aware that slaves were not seen as people sometimes by everybody. Not great.
No.
Caesar starts to call his soldiers that he sprinkled around Gaul to form back up on him. Caesar gets close to the camp and has a message attached to a spear thrown into the Roman camp that told them not to give up hope because Caesar was bringing the D. Sadly for the Romans, it was not discovered until the day they saw fire from Caesar burning down farms on his march toward them. This scene sounds like it was from a fucking movie or something, right? Like he wrote a message on a spear and threw the spear and it gets impaled into like one of the towers that the Romans had built to try to fight off the Gauls. And it's just sitting there with this message of hope, like, "We're coming for you." And then they see the black smoke in the distance, and then they see, like, "What's this fucking spear doing here?" And they read the message. They're like, "He's coming!"
Yeah, that's dope. I'm surprised that we haven't seen that in a
I
movie.
know,
Yeah,
it's
that's really
awesome.
cool.
I could see it done like Darth Vader at the start of episode 4, which is the best of the Star Wars movies, or it could be Gandalf breaking the siege in the 2 towers. Like, you can make this a villain moment or the hero moment. It's cool. Cicero got a message to Caesar warning him that the Gauls had turned their army back towards Caesar. Then Caesar made a pretty solid tactical decision. Caesar wanted to fake being afraid during a skirmish to then either fight on his side of the valley, which he's camped at, or to actually run away and cross the valley completely and avoid the fight. This is a great example of barbell theory from the book Spencer doesn't like, called Anti-Fragile. What barbell theory is you look to cut out medium risk to maximize low and high risk. Low risk would be to run away across the valley because you're already in the other side of the valley, so you can just run away. Medium risk would be marching against 60,000 Gauls because it would just be a slog, and you're just going to lose men, and they're going to lose men. High risk would be feinting a retreat to get a surprise attack off. The plan worked, but Caesar cannot chase the enemy. He writes, Caesar was afraid to pursue them too far. He's afraid again. Fear is like this constant, right? He decided to turn towards Cicero and found that 90% of the troops still alive were like severely injured. Cicero gives a talk where he does some weird math logic puzzle type equation saying that Sabinus' mistake plus Cicero surviving equals it's all good.
Okay.
It's weird. It's a long speech. And like, even when I was trying to read summaries of this book, they're like, and he gets a complicated story about like, it's all good now. It equals out.
Missed that day in algebra.
I know. But that's not great though for the Gauls, because although they had this victory, they now have a defeat of a lot of soldiers. Ambiorix's victory over one of Caesar's armies pumped new blood into Gaul. States began to prepare for war. Leaders Caesar had put in place were attacked. There was like assassination plots. Caesar tried to clamp down on this new blood, but he cannot seem to stop it. Caesar did not go to Italy for the winter. I love when you can't go to Italy for the winter. And to make it even better, no part of the whole winter passed without anxiety for Caesar. It got bad enough to where Caesar said only the Aedui and the Remi could be trusted anymore. And we haven't talked about all of the Gauls that there are, but it's a laundry list. Like, there's so many Gallic tribes. And for him to say, I can only trust the Aedui and the Remi is bonkers because they're like the first ones there. So it's not going well.
Poor Julius.
I know.
In the dead of winter, all sad.
He's so sad. I fucking love it. Indiotimarus had the pulse of this beating heart, and he called an armed convention. Spencer, you're going to fucking love this part. It's basically a call to arms. During an armed convention, tribes all send their soldiers to act as an army, right? So this is what I was saying before. You have all these tribes that make up a state, but the politics aren't like what we think they are, right? It's not like they don't have a governor. But what they do have is invaders. And so when invaders come, they have to be able to form up an army big enough to be able to stop the invading force. So how do you get all those tribes to actually send people? Because I could see me being like, they'll probably be fine. Like, it's probably fine if I just stay and farm and hang out with my wife. And they don't want that, right? That's bad. So what they do is they play, last one there is the rotten egg. But the rotten egg is you're tortured and killed in front of everybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They said it's brutal.
That is pretty good incentive.
That's what I was telling my wife. I was like, I would be there the night before.
Yeah. Early is on time and on time is late.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I will be there.
I can't imagine. I was trying to think like, maybe that's just like a scare tactic and they don't actually do it, or they do it if you're like, don't show up, or do they really do it because it works?
Or they've never had to find out.
Ooh, I don't know. Germans are brutal.
I don't know, man. We've talked about it before, and I don't know what episode, but remember in like the Battle of, is it Stalingrad, where the Russians were retreating and they were shooting at their own?
Yep.
So I think it's a pretty practiced thing, not even in ancient history, but in like recent history. So yeah, I could see it being a thing.
Sure. Indiotimarus marched on Labienus's camp. They attacked the camp daily, but nothing really happens. Then one day, it looks like everyone deserted Labienus's camp, but it ended up being a trick to get the Gauls to start packing up for home or something. It's not like clear like what it got them to do, but they were like, oh, they all just left, and so the Gauls kind of were meandering. They're like, do we go home too? Like, do we just go and sack this place now? And right at that moment, the cavalry burst out of the camp and killed Inutimaris. Like the orders were, don't attack anybody, just get Inutimaris. Like you know what he looks like now, you know which horse he's on. Like just get him because we need him gone because he's an actual threat to Rome. And so they got him. They got him pretty good. And with that failure, Ambiorix and the Nervi then turn home for the winter. So that's the end of this year.
We're going home.
I think this is like 54 BCE.
Okay.
So he's been here for fucking years. It's crazy.
Yeah. I can't believe he's not exhausted. But this is also a thing, right? That like back home in Rome, you were saying he has like hella debt.
Yeah, it's
So he doesn't give a shit. He's
no.
like, this is great. I'm just like avoiding all my problems at home.
Well, and it's looking great though, because he keeps conquering people and sending hostages back.
Still,
and
the war
slaves.
fucking sucks. Even if you're winning, it's fucking hard.
Yeah, but I just think Caesar sees dollar signs in his eyes every time he conquers one of these people. It's just like I get to send back slaves.
Cha-ching.
I get all the loot for these soldiers, and we're not gonna cover all of book 6. We're just gonna do snapshots.
Okay.
Because I want to focus on book 7 next time because book 7's the fun one. And in this like interlude between this winter and book 7, book 6 is a lot about Caesar has to get more troops because he lost a fuck ton of troops, which is the first time he's lost a fuck ton of troops. He usually just loses enough to where he could say like they went hungry or like they didn't not die. He didn't get this. Now he has to say like I really lost troops and I could use some more. And Rome's gonna send it to them.
Got it.
And
okay.
then he praises Rome for being such an efficient machine, and what a heart that it has that it can rally his troops for him.
Is that the affinity, dude? I was thinking about that today while I was mowing my lawn. Why are people so? What's the allure of ancient Rome?
I think it's the efficiency. I think that they look like a modern society.
Yeah. Like right, like when people look back and like, did you know they had plumbing?
Yeah.
Like that was like a thing, like that people say, and their architecture and all that stuff.
It's cool.
It is cool. It's neat.
It is neat.
Fuck Julius Caesar.
I know. And then I was walking around my class cleaning up today, thinking about this episode, and you know, it's hard. It's easy to say that kind of shit because we are literally reaping the benefits of a colonial empire. Like it's not like we aren't in the Philippines trying to establish an identity from a tribal fractured state that didn't truly exist.
Yeah.
Right? We are this conglomerate thing that just went out and conquered a bunch of shit. And then we
Totally.
as us now sitting in this room, like we benefit greatly from it.
Imperialism?
Yeah.
Yeah. It is a thing.
It's a thing.
It is. Yikes.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just I was just like, oh man, it's hard to.
That's the rub.
Yeah, it is a rub.
Yeah.
It's a part of the world, I guess.
Dude, it is what it is. Like
It happened.
John Green, that guy that we like, who
love John
has
Green.
his crash courses. For those of you who haven't, go check out John Green's crash courses. But there's one video he has where I believe he's talking about the Industrial Revolution.
Ooh.
And he's talking about the invention of the railroads in the United States, which was definitely built on slavery.
Yeah, a little bit.
Like bringing Chinese
Yep.
here and doing all that. And he's like, at the end of the video, he's like, hey folks, look, like that is kind of how a lot of things came to be today. Like y'all like your cell phones and your jeans and like that is a product of what all the fucked up shit that happened from the Industrial Revolution.
And even if you are totally clean, you're not, right? It was like
Totally.
Freakonomics we were talking about with the art one is that until very recently, it was impossible to create wealth without it being on the backs of people.
Yeah.
Like it just wouldn't happen.
Yeah, dude.
And that's not absolving them. I'm not making a
totally,
judgment on it.
Of course.
But we should acknowledge the reality of
Yes,
it.
dude. Are you going to be sitting here like, I'm vegan and
Yeah.
you like do all these things? You only take a shower once every 3 days and your shower is 15 seconds long and you're trying to like really do all these things for like your carbon footprint, right?
Sure.
But then you have an iPhone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That was like in college, the joke always was like, what was the carbon footprint of getting the Prius over here? Like all the parts, like
I'm trying to tell you, like shit like that, right? It's all very all very
It's
silly.
not to say you shouldn't, but
No.
I don't want to be a
No,
cynical.
no. But
person my whole
let's
life.
be realistic here.
Yeah.
Like
Pragmatic.
obviously, yes. Go drive your Priuses and all
Yeah.
that stuff, and like it's cool. You use less gas. That being said, there's some fucked up shit behind the Americans are very good at like because we don't see it, it's not there.
Yeah.
Like my Nike shoes, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like I'm not thinking about a Vietnamese woman like making below minimum wage and starving damn near to death making these shoes.
Yeah.
Just saying.
That reminds me of I took a physical anthropology class, which was dope.
Yeah, I bet.
And one of his rants, he'd go on random rants, which
I
I
bet.
loved. And he was talking about his buddy who was an anthropologist, and he studies like modern fears.
Whoa.
And he thinks that people are afraid of their poop. And that's why we
Interesting.
flush it away, because
Really?
we have to get away from it as quickly as possible.
Oh, interesting.
And I was
Okay.
like, I kind of see it. Like, I don't want my poop sitting around. It smells. It's stinky.
People are gonna have to come face to face with their poop one of these days.
Or their last day.
Or their last day. Hey man, like I said, I recently had to do a stool sample. It was interesting, like digging in there and like
Yeah.
becoming acquainted with my poop.
How'd it go?
Totally fine.
Was it?
Yeah.
I am scared of my poop.
Are you?
Well, it's just with our kids changing the poopy diapers. There is a change in it's not baby poop anymore in this diaper. This is man poop.
Oh, you're talking about Charlie.
Yeah, Charlie's not totally there yet, but Jude was there, and I told him, I was like, hey, I don't want to clean this anymore because this isn't a baby poop. This is
Yeah, dude.
this is my poop.
Yeah, this is you. You can hear English words coming out of my mouth, and you can go in the toilet and do this.
This is the hot dog I ate also. We ate the same thing.
Hey man, so in Afghanistan, when you're on a small forward operating base,
Yeah.
and there's no,
It's called the fob.
that's right.
I got that from an episode.
Good job, dude.
Yeah, we
You
made-
been listening to Battle Buddies?
I love that show.
Me too, dude. I
Fucking love this podcast.
I fucking adored this place. Don't make me leave. But when we would be on a fob that didn't have any like plumbing or anything like that, we would use wag bags. So you would poop in a bag
Yep.
and then Ziploc it and then walk it to the burn pit. And it was actually a really fun experience for a while.
You're like a through hiker.
Yeah, no, it was cool. I was like, oh, I'm like super. It's like a very intimate experience with
Yeah.
your poop.
Cool.
Thank you guys for anything else, bro? On Julius, Lord Julius, we have one more episode left, guys. Usually, and this is kind of the same thing here. When you watch a season of like an action show, the episode before last, like the 9th episode of 10 episodes, is usually really intense before the 10th episode. And so there was a lot of fighting in this episode.
There was, and a lot of losing.
And there was a lot of
Wait,
that.
there's
yeah.
a term, the penultimate.
Oh, really?
That's the one before the last. It's a useless term.
Is that truly what it's called? A penultimate?
The penultimate.
I kind of like it.
I know. I keep using it, and every time I use it, I'm like, this is useless.
It is useless.
And I keep finding uses for it.
Well, we just
because
did.
I know. The episode's going to be called The Penultimate.
That's tight. The penultimate. I like it a lot. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, now that we are having a video on the Spotify, interact with us and tell us how you feel about the videos.
Yeah.
I've been trying to put, for those of you who are listening, I've been putting visuals in between us where it is, where it makes sense. So if he's talking about visual things, all the stuff that Kevin sees here for his notes to tell the episode, we're going to start putting that into the episode so that you guys can feel more
Yeah.
oriented.
Our first project of the summer is getting we have a website kind of up. And so we're going to start putting the outlines up on it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
guys
we
can-
like that.
Get the actual language there and get in the content if you need it.
Yes, sir.
Maybe help a book report or two.
Yeah, hell yeah. You don't need to use AI. You got battle buddies.
Don't use AI.
Don't use that.
It gives you an answer whether it's true or not. It can lie.
Oh, truly?
Yeah, because it doesn't know.
That's fair. That's fair.
It's not real AI. Me and Christian were talking about this, my student teacher.
Shout out to Christian. I love him.
Fucking adore Christian. That's
Yeah.
why I knew about that Philippine bit that I had.
Oh.
Yeah, that's from him. He's always teaching me about the Philippines. I love it. Eating it up.
Shout out to Filipinos. We here in Northern California have a lot, and I in pro Filipinos.
We did a comedy unit. This is our final unit for the year, and the Filipino humor was
It's great.
hysterical.
Oh, dude,
One
they're
girl,
the best.
we made like these stand-up comedy routines, and she's a very quiet kid, and her whole routine is about how she is a terrible Google translator for her immigrant parents from the Philippines, and how she keeps getting things wrong because her grammar isn't that good
Oh,
either.
that's fun.
God, it was so good.
Yeah, that's fun. Man, I wish I was there for that. That sounds lovely. But yeah, Christian, dude, if you're listening to this, big fans.
Big fan.
Mr. V.
Mr. V.
Yeah, you guys can go check him out on our Instagram. He's a holder of the Battle Buddies sticker.
That's like gonna be like our eagle. Like you have it all.
Yeah. So thank you for listening, guys. Coming up on the summer, me and Kevin are going to try a couple different things. You'll definitely be seeing a consistent flow of episodes.
Yeah. We're figuring this video shit out.
Yeah.
We can never tell you guys how long it actually took us to get this first video.
Just know that we love you guys. Holy crap. I can't begin to describe to describe to you that this is a labor of love. If you guys were to provide any like money to our Spotify, like donate, man, just know that goes a long way.
Long way.
Yeah, we would love you dearly. We already do love you, so the love is going to be there regardless. Much love.
Much love. Good. That's very eloquent.
Yeah, dude. Been practicing poetry. So we will see you next week for the final episode of Julius Caesar. And then do you want to give him a sneak peek about where you're planning on going next?
Nope.
Nice.
Not yet.
Good for you for having the discipline.
Yep. Okay. No, they don't get to know yet.
Me and Kevin both know where we're going next. And also, we have a very special guest coming
Yeah, we
soon.
do.
Yeah. Very special guest coming in the middle of this month that I am beyond ecstatic about.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, dude. Thank you for listening. Please rate and review us in whatever streaming service you're listening to us on. We appreciate you so much. And we will see you next week. But until then,
Bonsai!